Icon, legend, country queen, just a few of the words that come to mind when we think of one of our favorites, Reba McEntire, and this three-time Grammy winner.
Reba McEntire became the queen of country by surviving people who tried to control, diminish, and stop her. Behind the awards, hit records, and television success were men who underestimated her, betrayed her, and attempted to shape her career on their own terms. Over the years, Reba never turned those experiences into public feuds, but through interviews and memoirs, she quietly revealed what she endured and how it changed her. So who were the men that tried to hold Reba McEntire back? And why did every attempt ultimately fail? Join us as we uncover the 5 men who tried to stop Reba McEntire, and the reason none of them could.
That is one of the all-time great country songs, Fancy, by Reba McEntire. And we are feeling extra fancy this morning because we have the Grammy Award-winning artist, Country Music Hall of Famer.
Number 5. The record men who put her in a gown. She was 19 years old, standing at a rodeo in Oklahoma City, singing the national anthem, the way she had sung it 100 times before at rodeos across Oklahoma, when a cowboy singer named Red Steagall heard something in her voice that he believed the world needed to hear. He brought her to Nashville. She recorded demos. Mercury Records signed her in November 1975 and told her they were going to make her a star. What they actually did was spend 8 years trying to turn her into someone else. The executives at Mercury had a very specific idea of what a female country artist should look like in the late 1970s and early 1980s. It involved evening gowns, heavy stage makeup, a polished, crossover-friendly sound that sat somewhere between country and pop, and committed fully to neither. It was a packaged product designed to appeal to the widest possible demographic, and it had almost nothing to do with the raw, honest, traditional country voice that Red Steagall had heard at that rodeo and believed in enough to bring to Nashville. Music critics were blunt about what Mercury was doing to her. They described the label as packaging a genuine country article as a city sophisticate, deliberately obscuring her natural assets to make her more commercially acceptable by their definition. They dressed her in clothes that were not hers. They gave her songs that were not hers. They produced albums that sounded like a compromise from beginning to end. And for 8 years, she couldn't break through. She had minor hits. She had moments. But the #1 records that her voice was fully capable of producing refused to arrive because the sound the label was asking her to make was a diluted version of what she actually was. By 1983, she had had enough. She negotiated her exit from Mercury and signed with MCA, telling people around her that she had taken her career into her own hands. She went home, pulled out her own record collection, found the traditional country songs she had grown up loving, and recorded them exactly the way she heard them in her head. The album was My Kind of Country. It came out in 1984 and produced 2 #1 singles. Billboard called her the finest woman country singer since Kitty Wells. The men at Mercury had spent 8 years trying to sand down everything that made her extraordinary, and the moment she was free of them, she released an album that proved exactly what 8 years of corporate packaging had been burying. She never needed the evening gown. She just needed to be left alone. But even at MCA, the battles weren't over, because the first producer they assigned her had his own ideas about who she should be, and she had to fight that battle too. So, what were her experiences with this new producer? Number 4, the producer who tried to drag her right back to pop. Walking away from Mercury and landing at MCA was supposed to be a fresh start. The moment when the gatekeeping was behind her and the music could finally happen the way she had always wanted. And for a brief, frustrating stretch of time, it looked like the same fight was about to start all over again under a different logo. Harold Shedd arrived as the producer on her first MCA album, Just a Little Love, and immediately started pushing her toward country pop arrangements, the exact direction she had just spent 8 years trying to escape. He began steering the record toward the same polished crossover sound that Mercury had built its whole failed strategy around. The sound that audiences had proved, repeatedly, they did not want from her. The sound that she knew in her bones was wrong. She rejected his suggestions, and then she did something that said everything about who she was becoming at 29 years old. She didn't sit with the frustration and hope it resolved itself. She walked directly into the office of Jimmy Bowen, the president of MCA's Nashville division, and told him the situation was not working. She said she needed to be making a different kind of record, finding material that actually suited her, and that she was not going to produce another album that sounded like it could have come from any female country artist with a polished vocal and a focus group behind her. Bowen listened, and Harold was replaced. The first MCA album was a transitional record, still finding its footing, but it cleared the runway for My Kind of Country, the album that changed everything. What happened with Shedd looks, on the surface, like a small internal production dispute, but it was something more than that. It was a young woman walking into a powerful man's office with nothing to offer except her absolute certainty that she knew what she was doing, and leaving with exactly what she came in for. She had no leverage. She had conviction. It turned out to be enough. Every record she made from that point forward sounded like Reba McEntire, because she made sure nobody got close enough to change that again. So what happens when the man trying to change her isn't a label executive or a producer, but the man sleeping in the same house with her? Number 3. The first husband who asked her to choose. Charlie Battles was 10 years older than Reba, a steer wrestling champion with a rancher's confidence and a rodeo cowboy's charm. She met him when she was barely out of her teens, and she fell completely. She called him the first great love of her life. They got married in June 1976, when she was 21 and he was 31. After her wedding, she moved on to his cattle ranch in Stringtown, Oklahoma, to build a life alongside 2 stepsons from his first marriage. For a while, it worked. They rodeoed together, ranched together, existed together inside a world that made complete sense to both of them. She was also quietly starting to build a music career, driving to Nashville, recording for Mercury, beginning the long, slow process of becoming something. And in those early years, while she was still mostly unknown, the marriage held. Then the records started coming, and the tours got bigger. People started knowing her name in ways that had nothing to do with Charlie Battles and everything to do with that voice. And something in him shifted. He was not supportive of her career, not hostile in the dramatic sense, but indifferent in a way that carried its own particular sting. He operated on the assumption that his work mattered more. When she tried to build a relationship with his sons, he made her feel unwelcome in moments that should have brought them all closer. And as her career kept growing, and his sense of control kept slipping, the jealousy got louder, and the behavior got worse. He started taking money from her without asking. Not small amounts. Reaching into her purse, taking what he needed, and when she said something about it, responding with cruelty. His anger found new registers. He wanted her to slow down, to pull back, to fit back inside the life they had built before Nashville started calling with increasing urgency. She refused. By 1987, after 11 years of marriage, she had run out of road. She packed up, left the Oklahoma ranch behind, filed for divorce, and moved to Nashville to do the thing she had been delaying for years, put everything she had into the music. Some of her fans were furious. She told People magazine later that she had talked so openly about her personal life in the past that when the divorce came, she got absolutely lambasted. She absorbed it and kept going. She released the last one to know the same year the marriage ended, dedicated it to Charlie Battles, and moved forward. Charlie suffered a stroke in 2006 and died in 2013 at 68. She has spoken about him with more grace than the situation required. What she built in the years after she left that ranch, the albums, the television, the career that turned her into an institution, is what happens when someone stops choosing between their dream and the person trying to make them feel small for having one. But even after surviving a marriage that tried to shrink her ambitions, Reba was about to discover that success didn't protect her from being underestimated. Because the next people to tell her no weren't standing on a ranch in Oklahoma. They were sitting in television boardrooms, convinced that even a star as big as Reba McEntire couldn't make audiences care about the full truth of her life story. Number 2, the television executives who said her story was too long. By 1992, Reba McEntire was not some promising newcomer asking for favors. She was one of the most commercially powerful artists in country music, with multiple platinum albums, Grammy Awards, and the kind of sustained audience loyalty that most acts spend entire careers chasing without finding. She had proven herself so completely and so repeatedly that the idea of anyone telling her what she could and couldn't do with her own work should have been laughable. It wasn't laughable enough to stop them from trying. She released a music video for Is There Life Out There?, a song about a woman who goes back to college to finish her degree while managing a family and a marriage. The video told the story properly. It was longer than a standard music video. It had dialogue. It looked more like a short film than a 3-minute promotional clip, because that was exactly what it needed to look like to honor the story it was telling. Executives at country music television complained to MCA that the video was too long and had too much dialogue. They wanted it cut into something that fit their scheduling format without disrupting the flow of everything else on their channel. The story, apparently, was the problem. The video aired anyway, uncut, exactly as she had made it. And the Academy of Country Music gave it Video of the Year. This is the pattern that runs through every confrontation in Reba McEntire's career with men who thought they knew better. They made their objections, expressed their doubts, and pushed back against whatever she was trying to do. And then the audience showed up and made it very clear whose judgment had been correct all along. Mercury said traditional countries wouldn't sell. The fans bought millions of records. CMT said her video was too long. The ACM gave it their top honor. She never needed their permission. She kept making work that was true to what she believed, and the audience kept rewarding her for it. And the men who had expressed doubts kept having to find somewhere else to stand. The next man who tried to stop her was much harder to leave behind. Because he wasn't at a label or a network. He was in her home. Number 1, Narvel Blackstock, who took everything when he left. Narvel Blackstock was playing steel guitar in Reba McEntire's touring band when they first crossed paths in 1980. They were both married at the time. According to her own memoir, she didn't even speak to him the first time they met. She was still with Charlie Battles, and the line between personal and professional was not something she crossed lightly. Narvel had been friends with Charlie. The whole dynamic was complicated before it ever became romantic. Then the Charlie Battles divorce happened in 1987. Narvel's marriage ended too. and the two people who had been circling each other professionally for 7 years finally stopped pretending there wasn't something else there. They married in July 1989. Their son Shelby was born in 1990. She also became stepmother to Narvel's 3 children from his first marriage: Shauna, Chastity, and Brandon. For 26 years, Narvel Blackstock did not just manage Reba McEntire's marriage. He managed her entire life. The bookings, the deals, the tours, the team, the financial architecture of an entertainment career that was generating tens of millions of dollars a year. He ran everything. She got up and sang. On the Drew Barrymore show, she described the marriage as always being intertwined with business, that they started working together in the band, and the work was always present, and eventually the work and the marriage became impossible to separate. When the marriage ended in 2015, they didn't just end, they exploded. Because there was no version of Narvel Blackstock leaving, that didn't also mean the entire operational team leaving with him. In her Esquire interview published in September 2025, she described the moment the full weight of it landed. Her production manager was gone, her CEO was gone, her manager was gone, and her father had died around the same period. 4 men who had been the rocks and pillars of her world, all gone simultaneously. She said she was deserted, abandoned, and left. She threw a fit. On Apple Fitness plus Time to Walk in 2021, she described what the aftermath actually looked like in practical terms. She was 60 years old, and she did not know how much a gallon of milk cost. She did not know what the electric bill was. She did not know how to run the operational machinery of her own career because Narvel had handled every piece of it for 26 years. She had been completely, systematically dependent on one man for everything outside the actual act of singing. The people around her, her angels, she called them, pulled her back up, told her she was tough and that she could do this. And she did. But the specific pain of standing at 60 years old and realizing that a 26-year marriage had left her functionally helpless in the real world outside the recording booth, that is not a small thing. That is the cost of trusting someone so completely that you stopped trusting yourself to handle anything else. Narvel walked away with a divorce settlement reportedly worth $47.5 million. Then, in 2024, he married a woman named Laura Stroud, who had previously been a friend of Reba's. The double betrayal, the ex-husband and the former friend, together, while she was still working through everything that his departure had taken from her. She did not publicly fall apart or go on television and describe in detail what it felt like to watch the two of them together. She signed on to The Voice as a coach and showed an entire new audience exactly who she was. She launched Happy's Place on NBC, rebuilt the team, the systems, and the understanding of what it took to keep her career running, and discovered, for the first time at 60, that she was fully capable of running it herself. She also fell in love again. Rex Linn had known her since 1991. They met on the set of a Kenny Rogers film and stayed in each other's orbits for nearly 30 years. When they reconnected in 2020 after the death of her mother, he stepped up in the way that people who have been waiting for the right moment sometimes do. They started texting. They talked on the phone through the pandemic, building an intimacy at a distance before they ever had the chance to be fully together. By June 2020, they were inseparable. He proposed in December 2024, and she told people she had never been loved by a man the way Rex loves her. She described him as tender-hearted, bashful, and entirely good. In the same breath, she acknowledged that 2 failed marriages had left her without much faith in being bound by a piece of paper or a ring. And then she said yes anyway, because Rex Linn had made the paper and the ring feel worth believing in again. Is the real measure of a woman not just what she survives, but who she becomes in the exact moment when everything those men built around her finally falls away? And if Narvel Blackstock had never left, would we be watching the most fearless, fully formed version of Reba McEntire that has ever existed? Or did she need to lose everything to find out she never needed any of it in the first place? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.